This is bad. So there's a major update to the story we talked about the other day, where a white man was caught in the process of beheading his African wife in Liberia. We had heard the white man's side of the story in our previous video, and now the young lady is speaking out, and it's not looking good for the white man. It's not tallying. The narrative is so much different from what Richard Lucas had said in his initial confession. Now, if you haven't seen the first video we made, please take a moment to go check it out. It has a lot of information, especially from the girl's mother's side and to the initial details in the first reports. Take your time to watch the first video and then come back here for the update. Now, the first thing first, in the initial video we talked about how the mother claimed that the white man, Mr. Richard Lucas, who is a missionary, had come to ask for her daughter's hand in marriage, and they did a traditional wedding. Now, it wasn't confirmed at the time, we weren't so sure, but as it stands now, pictures from the ceremony of Richard Lucas paying the dowry of Jessica Lloyd are now surfacing in the internet, which means there is evidence that this man was traditionally married to this girl, despite having a wife who is also in the missionary work with him there in Liberia. You also need to remember, in our previous video, we pointed out the fact that Jessica's mother talked about how Richard Lucas' wife was not aware of the wedding. In contrary to what Lucas told Jessica and her family, that his wife was aware that he was getting married to an African woman there in Liberia. So that is one of the updates. Now, the second update is where we are having Jessica tell her own side of the story. And this is where things is taking a left turn. And this is something I've been saying on this channel. Whenever somebody commits murder, the only person that is available to control the narrative is the killer who is alive. A lot of you have said it in the comments, the dead can't defend themselves, the dead can't speak up for themselves. But this is one instance where who should have been dead but alive is now speaking up for herself. And what she's saying is not what the white man, Mr. Richard Lucas, is saying. So Jessica Lloyd, in her condition, was able to tell what happened on that fateful day, the 14th of September 2023. That would have been the end of her life. From what we already know, it has been clear that Richard had drugged her, injected her with substances after she told him she was pregnant. And those drugs that he gave her and injected her ended up causing her to have a miscarriage. Now, we don't know the timeline of when she had a miscarriage to the point where she's in the vehicle with Richard as they were trying to sort things out, as they were trying to make amends. But on that fateful day, they were in the vehicle, they were going out. Richard had promised to take her out to cheer her up over the pregnancy they had just lost. Because in Richard's mind, he's acting like he did not know that the drugs was going to cause her to lose the pregnancy. And so he was trying to cheer her up, take her out to buy things for her and, just have fun. It was also stated that he was also to leave Liberia the next day to the United States, but was going to maybe come back to finish his missionary work. Now, on that day on the road, the initial confession from Richard Lucas was that they were going back home after buying cornflakes and stuff and provisions for her, but his car got spoiled and he told her to take a motorcycle to take her back to her mother's house because they don't live together. Jessica still lives in her mother's house with her mother, and at the time the mother was at church. So he claimed when his car broke down, he came down to fix the car with a spanner or whatever that thing is that they use to fix the crank. And while he was doing so, he said, now this is Richard Lucas' side of the story, he said that Jessica was standing by the roadside waiting for a keke or for a motorcycle to take her home while he was busy on the tire. Richard claimed that the next thing he heard was a loud sound, boom, that a tricycle had knocked Jessica off the road into the bush, and he quickly went there to try to help her up and save her, and that it was at this point that community boys saw him and attacked him and accused him of trying to kill her, saying it was at this point that the mob grew, that people started attacking him, and he was only trying to tell them that no, someone had hit her with a tricycle and he was only trying to help her up from the ground, from the bush that she somehow flew into. This is what Richard is claiming. He also claimed that he would never hurt her, that why would he hurt her after he just bought provisions for her, after he just bought cornflakes and ice cream for her. He explained everything in his story, but he never explained how the girl had a whole gash to her throat. Her throat is cut nearly open. You could see the pipes down the throat. Now, Jessica's version of the story is totally different from what Richard is saying. In fact, in Richard's version, he claimed even after trying to help her up and the crowd came, he was trying to take the girl back into the vehicle. But funny enough, that was most likely the case because there is some kind of similarity with Jessica's story to his, but not quite as he is explaining.
They wanted money. So he said he missed the group, so they directed him in the play. But the children were behind us. So he couldn't do anything. But first, before we get out from the car, he took out the net, big net. He said, I fed a snake, so in case we see snake, then we'll kill it. And laugh with it. I expect So we get out from the car and put the net in your pocket. After we go to the riverside, people were playing it there, so we couldn't do anything.
Okay, so guys, due to the way she's speaking, clearly she has been hurt on her neck, and it's affecting the way she's speaking. I will just give the total narration as to what she's saying, and maybe by the end of the video, I can put a full version from her own mouth for those who may be able to still understand her. But before I continue, make sure you like, share, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed.
In Jessica's version, she said that yes, she and Richard were in the vehicle. They had gone out to have fun, I think, and on their way back, Richard stopped near a bush to pee, and that he now brought out a knife and told her that he needs to go with the knife in case they see a wild animal in the bush or anything that will attack them in the bush. And he also asked that Jessica, escorts him into the bush so he can pee. And from what I got, it seemed like Jessica did the first time, and he was acting very sketchy, pretending to have seen an animal, even called Jessica to come and look at the animal. And I think it was at this point he was trying to contemplate whether or not to stab her or kill her. But Jessica did say that there were people around at the time, so it may have not been the convenient time for him to do so. And I think in Jessica's story again, they finished from there and they went back into the car. And after a small minute, Richard said he wanted to pee again. And Jessica was like, you just finished peeing. And I think he was trying to do the same thing. He was trying to find the perfect time and the perfect moment to kill this girl with that knife. But Jessica, according to her, she was still somehow sedated. She was still somehow drugged. I think the medicine, the drugs that was given to her for the abortion was still in effect. It's either that or she was given another medication that was supposed to calm her down from losing so much blood. And that medication was still in her body. So she was a little bit slow. However, the moment the monster came out from this man was said to be when they got to a point while driving at a nearby bush corner, and that was when Lucas came down and said his tire was bad, that he needed to fix it. So this is the part that kind of rhymes with Richard Lucas' story. So Jessica was in the car initially while Lucas was fixing it, and then Lucas somehow told her to come out, come down and assist him and help him or just stand by him. And that's when Jessica came out of the vehicle while Richard was fixing the car with the spanner, the crank or the jack, whatever weapon he was using. So this is where Jessica was like, while she was there, Richard pretended to have seen something on her neck and said, there's something on your neck, let me get it out for you. And Jessica turns around, hoping Richard was going to get the thing or whatever it was that he is claiming to see from her neck. And he was trying and pretending that he was removing something. And the next thing she heard was a big bang, a big sound. She didn't even feel the pain. This was the point that Richard had used the mechanic crank to hit her in her head. Jessica even thought it was his car tire that blew up, but she saw herself on the floor. And the next thing you know, she was dragged into the bush where this man began trying to slit her throat. Now, in Jessica's own remembrance of the event, I can tell you this for a fact, from what I got, it seemed like she, in that moment, this man was trying to kill her. It was not occurring to her that that was what was happening. To her, when the man was slitting her throat, she wasn't feeling it, according to her. She wasn't feeling it. It was as if, to her, everywhere was blurry. The pain from the head was still there. She was most likely having some kind of concussion that was making her not aware of what was happening. In her mind, she interpreted Lucas cutting her throat as Lucas trying to help her from the floor. But she did remember seeing Lucas with a knife and seeing Lucas doing something to her throat. And all she can think of was saying Lucas was trying to help her. it was not interpreting, but she was seeing blood, but it was not making sense to her. It is literally now, after she has been taken to the hospital, that it's now all making sense to her. Because according to her in that moment, since she did not know what hit her behind, she assumed it was something bad, and she was even jerking off and having some kind of seizure. And in the entire process, it's looking like Lucas is helping her out. While this was going on, passerby actually were seeing this. The two keke drivers who were passing by saw everything from the beginning. They saw this man hit her, and maybe that was why she's alive today. Maybe that's why this girl is still alive, because they saw it from the beginning. They saw it from a distance, and they were quick to get to where she was. They were quick to save her, because in that moment that Richard struck her with the weapon, these boys saw it, and they were like, what? And before their very eyes, they saw this man dragging her into the inner part of the bush and trying to slit her throat with a knife. That was when they came to her rescue, and it was said Richard Lucas put up a fight, fighting these boys, even injuring one of them close to his eyes, and even attempting to take Jessica back into the vehicle. Because at this point, he had realized that people are now watching. So he was trying to get Jessica back into the vehicle. Jessica was still bleeding from her neck. She still is not sure of what is going on. She was incomplete, almost as if she was unconscious, but struggling to stay alive or struggling to be awake. But the boys, the keke boys, did not let him take it. More people came, the crowd soon got filled up, and that was how Richard got into his vehicle and started running. And Jessica was taken to the hospital. The version of her story is quite different from what Richard said. But there's a similarity there that can actually be detrimental to the entire scale of this picture. Jessica's own narrative is almost somehow strongly giving a small chance for Richard Lucas' case to be, or Richard Lucas' story to be plausible, because Richard is claiming that the keke hit her and he was going to help her. And ironically, that is what Jessica remembers. I don't know if you guys are getting me. This is what Jessica is saying she remembers. She remembers him trying to help her. At the same time, she also remembers the knife. She also remembers the weapon. She also remembers being hit from behind when Richard was trying to help her get something. And I think these are the different parts of the story that would probably destroy or make Richard's own case void and visibly a big lie. Because what is there not to see? It's almost as if to me that this Jessica girl is somewhat naive. Is one of those people that will get burnt by a flame and still go back and put their hand in it. This man literally drugged you and injected you to lose your pregnancy, and you were aware of it. But somehow you still trusted him to get into the vehicle with him. You still trusted him to go and have one last dinner with him. You still gave him the chance and the benefit of the doubt to still be in the same space with him. Somewhere in her story, she even claimed that Richard told her that they should go and visit a cemetery, that they should go and visit a nearby cemetery and see the grave and see when they died and, walk by. Red flag. Him stopping by to pee more than once, red flag. Him picking out a knife from his pocket to go and pee because he was trying to catch a bushmeat or afraid that a big monster will come and attack him, another red flag. I'm sorry to say, thank God she's alive, but Jessica is one of those people that don't see red flags enough. One of the people that will make excuses and will probably most likely see the best in people, because I don't get why she couldn't see this coming. Even to the point when this man was cutting her throat, in her confession, she's still claiming that she thought he was helping her. Because in her defense anyway, she did say she wasn't feeling it. She wasn't feeling it. Even when he hit her in the back, she said she didn't feel it, but she saw herself falling to the ground, fainting and jerking. I don't know if it's her way of trying to somehow protect her husband. I don't know why, because to her, she's legally married to this man because there's a traditional wedding that had been done. Her dowry has been paid. Maybe she's trying to be a wife, but she's lucky that people were there to save her, because this would have gone out differently. And God forbid she had died, this man would have gotten away with it from his own narrative. Who is going to believe the two keke men? Who is going to believe them over a white man? The man himself could easily change the narrative and say that it was the two boys who even tried to kill her and he was trying to save her. And that would be the narrative that will be run. Thank God she's awake and alive to tell her side of the story. And even if her side of the story, she's still making it look like she did not know what was going on, it still puts a dent in Richard Lucas' case, making him clearly guilty of murder and attempted murder because he killed the baby. So, yeah. It's just so unfortunate because as it stands now, we have to wait and see how the law in Liberia takes place. We've had stories of foreign men coming to African countries to kill and disrespect our women and go back to their country scot-free, even go as far as making posts and laughing about it. But this time, we've seen a culprit. He has been caught and arrested. And even though he did not commit murder, we would like to see how far the law would punish him. Or if at all, he will not be set free. I hope Liberia is able to punish this man. I do hope so. I just hope this man is not let go, because I'm just saying that the worst that could happen is that American government will negotiate, most likely pay for his release. But one thing that is a fact is that when he goes back to his hometown in America, if his wife is any sensible and smart, she should divorce him and take all his properties. That's what I feel. It's just shocking to me that this is what it has come. Imagine if this girl had died, we would not have known that this thing was happening. We would not have known that this is what this man was trying to do. I mean, everybody knew he was lying from his own video, but it's good to hear from the victim side of the story when it comes to a murder case, because often at times, if not 99% of the time, we don't get to hear the victim sides of the story, especially after they've been killed.